Welcome to Killer Women with your host, best-selling author Danielle Girard. And now, Danielle's next killer woman.
Welcome to the Killer Women podcast, a proud member of the Authors on the Air Global Network with more than 4 million listeners. I am your host, suspense author Danielle Girard, and my guest today is Jessa Maxwell. Jessa lives in Jamestown, Rhode Island with her husband, cats, and 3-legged dog. The Golden Spoon is her first novel. Welcome, Jessa.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
Okay, so I love the description of this, which is Only Murders in the Building Meets the Maid. And this is such a fun, edible, different type of book than a lot of the books I've read lately. So it was so fun. So tell our listeners a little bit about The Golden Spoon.
The Golden Spoon is a baking competition that is televised. It's held at a manor, like a haunted, well, not a haunted manor, but a, creepy Gothic manor. And it's been held by this woman named Betsy Barton, who is a kind of a Julia Child, America's grandmother. And she's joined this year by kind of this brash, like he was on like a cooking show that, more similar to Chopped. And he is kind of up to like ruin her, she feels like. So a murder happens at the beginning, and then the book kind of unspools from there, and you get to know all these contestants, you get to know Betsy, and yes, I had so much fun writing it.
Oh my God, it's so fun. And yeah, Betsy's like this she's like a royal in the world of cooking, and the newcomer,
Archie.
Archie.
See, my brain. He's kind of a Mitch character.
He has sort of a Mitch, but anyway, his name is not Mitch. His name is Archie. And Archie is 100% the like, let's make this more interesting. Let's switch things up. And she is like, she sort of is like a Julia Child, Martha Stewart. Like she wants a certain decorum to her show. The manor is all very fancy. There's the East Wing where she lives, and the West Wing where the contestants stay, and it's all she likes it all very sort of planned and smooth. And Archie's there really to mess things up, but she's got all this pressure, right? The producers are like, it's not enough, we need something new. And of course that would make us all feel really, really unnerved. So can you tell us, do you remember the inspiration for the story? Like, where did this idea come from?
It really, I wanted to write a closed room mystery. I'd been reading lots of like Lucy Foley, and I love a locked room mystery. I love multiple perspectives, and I wanted to try something like that. And I had like all these ideas floating around, and I was like, I was on the phone with my mom, actually. I was taking a walk. She's like, you've got to just write it. I've just got to try writing. This is my first, novel. So it's like, oh, can I do it? And then I thought, well, what if it was at a baking competition? It just kind of came to me. And then I thought, oh no one wants to read that. That would be very dark, but then I couldn't stop thinking about it. It's like, that would be really fun to write. So I pursued it, and I wrote this book. I wrote it in like 3 months. I loved writing it. It was so fun for me to write this book. I'm writing my second book now, and it's not going the same. So every day I'm like, I had so much fun writing it.
We'll talk about that too, because that of course is so unfortunately normal. But that is so fun. So it sort of rushed out of you.
I did, yeah.
I love it. And
it's so much fun.
I love that you're worried that it's dark, because I think in our world, it's not that dark.
No, it's not that dark. Yeah,
compared to so many. I mean, it's got really lovely. For me, of course, dark is a sort of bizarre compliment. I love a dark book.
Oh, I do too.
But it's not too dark. There's nothing really. There are moments where you're like, "Ooh, that's yikesies," but it's in a good way.
I kind of like thought like, it's not like, I always wanted to write like a cozy thriller, not like a cozy mystery, but like a cozy thriller. And that's what I hope this has achieved, because I don't think it's not quite as, I think that's why Nita Prose is a good comparison, because it's not it's not like a too cozy, but it verges on cozy. And there, it resolves itself the way cozy should resolve itself.
Well, and I also think there's that, I think the manner and the sort of all that affluence and the kind of the creepy house. You said it, a haunted house, and it's not per se
it's not
haunted,
yeah,
but it
but
could
it feels
be,
like it.
but
Yeah.
it could be haunted. It feels like the kind of place that could be haunted. So for sure, I agree with you. But I think of a cozy as being, and I'm not really a cozy reader, so I shouldn't probably say, but I feel like this has all the elements of, of any sort of Lucy Foley type. And those I don't think about as being cozies, but you're right.
No.
Sort of, it is a little bit like The Maid in the sense that, yeah, you're in this, there's no sort of really like looming, terribly evil human being who's like getting ready to put people on the, cutting board and chop them up.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. No, and I prefer not writing that. I realize, like, I don't think I love reading really dark, but I get very invested in my characters, and I have trouble honestly even imagining that kind of, just pure evil. Like, I like to know why someone's doing. I loved writing the character. I don't want to give anything away, but I loved writing some of the characters that had darker to them. That was really fun. But I don't know if I could write like a psychopathic,
right. Although a good psychopath would still have like redeeming characteristics, right? That's what's so fun.
That's true.
And I think each of your characters has something very dark in them or about them, right? And I appreciated that too. That there's nobody who's like, oh yeah, that person's really clearly out just for good. So there are, without going into too much detail, I kind of want you to talk to us a little bit about the characters. Obviously there's Betsy, who is in charge. And then you have these, 6 fabulous contestants, right? You have Hannah, who's this young woman who comes from like a really small town, and she's like the prized baker at the little diner, and she has a very sort of small life, which she imagines sort of launching. And then we have Stella, who was a reporter, who's left her. That was always her sort of a journalist. That was always her 100% goal, is to be this journalist. And she ended up leaving that job for reasons we come to understand, and doing this. And so tell us a little bit about the other ones. We
have Lottie, who is a retired nurse from Rhode Island, who has come for multiple reasons to participate in this, has tried to get on the show for like a decade. We have my favorite character, Pradyumna.
I do love Pradyumna.
He's my favorite. I just love Pradyumna. Like, I miss writing Pradyumna. He was like,
I'll bet he could come to another book.
I know he needs to. He's just my favorite. And he, is like had this ridiculous tech startup, kind of doesn't take himself seriously, but is like in the throes constantly of an existential crisis, basically, that he tries to numb himself from
with activities like skydiving. And he's like a millionaire. He doesn't need any of this,
rich person,
but he does it right. But he doesn't really have a purpose now that he's made his millions. And I actually, he's funny for one, like he's, in his, but the existential crisis feels so real. Like there's this point, and I think it happens particularly for men, right? Where they get to a certain level of like, I did that. Now what's the next sort of, what's the next exciting thing I'm supposed to be doing? And so he kind of searches out trouble, which is really fun.
And I think like, I think anyone in that situation gets to a certain point where it doesn't keep like the things that worked before don't work still, and then they become more and more self-destructive, which I think is really interesting. I've definitely met men like that,
of course.
Then we have Gerald, who is a math teacher from the Bronx, who's very type A, kind of neurotic. I loved him too. I loved writing him. And then Peter, who is a, kind of a fix-it guy. He does all sorts of home restoration. And who else?
They're fun. I think that and Archie, I think that's our crowd, right? Did we forget anybody? No, I don't think we did.
Not any of the main characters,
right. And then there's like Melanie, who's the assistant to Betsy. But it is a beautiful cast of characters, and they're very quickly, which I think is really hard to do and impressive, you distinguish them so that we're not like, wait, which one is this? They're all very different. They have
Mhm.
very different motivations, and no one is everyone is fully developed. They're fully realized character, and you can imagine them being your neighbor, your coworker,
Mhm.
um, and the interplay of them it's and how it. I'm not going to ruin anything, but the very end of it is just I loved how it ends. So
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, that
you
was
got
just so fun.
it was
Just so
so
fun.
fun. You got
Yeah.
to read the end. You got to read the end to know. So one of the things, of course, I cannot bake water. So it's like I am not a cook. I'm actually
No.
the worst in the kitchen. But there's so much wonderful detail about these spices that you bring
Mhm.
in and all this. So tell us, like, is it research or did you cook all of these things?
No. I mean, I would love if actually, because we're having this little launch party, wouldn't it be so cool to get someone in to like bake some of these things? But
Yes.
no, I have not made any of them.
Fair.
But I have baked a lot, and I do love imagining different flavor combinations, and I actually enjoyed it. When I was first writing those parts, I had a lot of trouble because I was like, how much do people want to read about baking, and if it's going to be repetitive because it's happening each day, of the competition. So I had a lot of like trouble figuring out how much to put in, but I think I struck the right balance in the end,
Yeah.
uh, of having enough but not too much. And I know people find the descriptions very appetizing, so I'm glad I did a good
Yes.
job
And
with
it's like,
that too.
and a lot of it is like, you're not giving us the like put this
Mhm.
and how it's not like a recipe, but it
Yeah.
is like a sense of like, ooh, how the flavors that would go together, and that's fun to imagine because it's like
Mhm.
things I would never have even thought
Mhm.
about, right? And then a lot of the baking is sort of where things go a little bit wrong, right? Because it seems like the contestants are there baking while these camera people are coming around and
Mhm.
and people are asking them questions when I mean, as far as I can tell, it takes a lot of concentration to bake something start to finish well.
Mhm.
Like you can't really
Yeah.
take your eye off the ball.
Yeah.
And yet, part of this whole, and especially with Archie and his wanting to sort of shake things up, is to sort of make everybody feel a little discombobulated, which
Mhm.
he does. And then the poor contestants, some of
Yeah.
whom are, handle it better than others, but
Yeah. Yeah.
right.
I mean,
Others,
like you watch the British Baking Show or any of these shows, but that was the one that I always watched because it was a little nicer than, any of these
yes,
others. And you just, even though the people are being nice to them, they're so stressed out. Like it's so
yeah,
scary. I cannot imagine. I would have a absolute heart attack every
me
time.
too.
I cannot
Me too.
imagine. And even if you were good, you would get so flustered and discombobulated.
Yes.
Like I just can't imagine. I think it'd be so incredibly challenging. Uh,
Yes. No way. It would be, yeah,
yeah.
I would never sign up for this baking show in a hundred
Yeah, you
years.
have to have just such nerves of steel, I really think. And actually Val from season 16, I think, of the baking show has my book right now, so I'm hoping she likes it.
Oh my God.
I
I
know, I'm
love
really
that.
excited. Yeah.
I'm sure she'll love it. I can't imagine because I haven't read a book like this. I mean, I can't think of if there's ever been a book set at a baking contest. I mean, I don't know, but it's a super clever um hook. You know what I mean? And so many people love those shows, right? So this is an extension of that for those people who love it. And I imagine I'll be curious to know when you do your because I know you're going on tour, which is so
Mhm.
exciting, and you'll have to tell our listeners where you're going so they can follow you. But I wonder if I wonder if you ought to just like have people show up with like or have
It's good.
little cookies and
I mean, I wouldn't say no
exactly,
to any
exactly.
baked goods on tour.
Challenge. Make one of the recipes from the book. So where are
That would
you
be
going and
amazing.
when does your tour start?
It starts March 7th in New York City at the Mysterious Bookshop, which will be
Fun.
very fun. It's like the launch party. I'm going to be in conversation with my editor, Lindsay Sagnet, who's just wonderful.
Wonderful.
And then I go to Scottsdale, which is, I believe that's the Poison Pen.
It is. Barbara
Yeah.
Barbara Peters.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that one. I always get that all the names are so similar, they're all
I
like
know.
Murder by the Book. And then
Yes.
I do go to Houston the next day
For Murder by the
Murder
Book.
by the Book. And then
Yes.
I'm going to Minneapolis.
Once Upon a Crime.
Thank you. They're also like, they also are
I
so, I get
know.
confused too because
I
there's these
know.
blog names, but they're all such good, they all look like such good bookstores. And that one will be on the 11th of March. And then the following week on Tuesday, I'm really excited. I'm going to be with Diane Morrissey, who's a really amazing, exceptional cook at Elm Street Books in New Canaan.
Fun.
And then the last one, no, two more. And then I have a couple more local ones. I'm going to a bookstore that's on the island of Jamestown, and they're just like lovely. It's called Curiosity and Co.
Okay.
And I'm going to be at Brown University that week also. So yeah, it'll be really fun, very exciting. Maybe going to Florida later, but I'm not sure.
So fun. And then there's Inkspell. Is it Inkspell? Inkfish? Isn't that one that's right in Rhode Island too? That's the one Vanessa Lilly always goes to.
Oh, it might be. We have actually amazing bookstores here. There's like Charter Books and Newport. I mean, I've only lived here a couple of years, so I'm just still exploring, but there's some really, really cute bookstores.
Amazing. Yeah. And how fun that you get to do this in real life. Like, it feels like the last few years, nobody's gotten to have real life. So that is super exciting.
Yeah. I feel really lucky that it's coming out right now.
Yes.
It's really fun.
Yes. So this is your first, it sounds like this is the first book you've ever written.
It is. I mean, I wrote an illustrated children's books before this, like picture books. So this is, I had, a little bit of an idea about publishing. I had agents before.
Right.
And then this is my first novel. So, but it was very different.
Of course. I would imagine very different from a children's story, which is like what? 3,000 words, maybe?
Oh, no, picture books, it's like 500 words, So it's like completely different.
Mm-hmm. It sounds actually kind of lovely right now, a picture book.
I know, especially right now.
So tell us, like, first of all, that's incredible because, most authors do not sell their first book, right? They write a book and they have to bury it in the backyard and start another book. So tell us about, you had mentioned, I think, that this book sort of just poured out of you. And I can't remember if we were already recording when we were talking about that, but that you sort of wrote it in 3 months. And from there, tell us what happened. Like, what was everyone always likes to hear, how you got your agent, how you, your first book story. So if you don't mind sharing it.
No, that's fine. I mean, I had an agent. I'm not going to say her name because she did not like the book. So I worked on it all summer, sent it to my agent. She didn't like it. And then I had to, I was like adrift. I had this like manuscript I was super excited about and really proud of, but I had to send it out to other people. I ended up getting an incredible agent. I was super lucky I had an introduction, which always helps.
Totally.
Her name's Alexandra Machinist. She's like just the best in the business. And she sent it out, and then, it was kind of like the dream. You had like, because I wrote it so fast, all this happened. I had an auction. It had all, 6 publishing houses bidding on it. And then I sold it in a 2-book deal to Atria, which was just like, a dream come true. It was beyond, while you're writing, that's always in the back of your head. You're like,
right.
You're like, going to get a book, is it going to be like published or even, and then I had another auction a week later for the TV rights, which was really fun.
So fun.
And
who has those?
Right now it's ABC. It's Eileen Brosh McKenna signed on to write it. She adapted like The Devil Wears Prada. She just did the movie Your Place or Mine, which is currently doing really well on Netflix, I think.
Is that Reese and Ashton Kutcher? I haven't seen it, but I've seen.
I haven't either.
Oh, that is so exciting. I mean, because you can absolutely picture this as a series show or that's so fun.
Yeah, it was really fun. And I liked like while I was writing it, I kind of, it's like, I'm trying to get there with my second one, but like I loved thinking about it super visually.
Yeah.
Before I was an illustrator, so I think a lot of work, like a lot of like writing comes to me very visually, and
Yeah.
um
I can feel
yeah,
that in the book
yeah.
for sure. So
So
that's so exciting. Okay, so you basically had like the dream first book experience.
I did. I had the
You
dream first
wrote it
book.
in 3 months,
Yeah.
had to change agents, which happens, and then
Mhm.
you basically sold it. So if you started it when? Do you remember?
I
Like,
started it at the very beginning of May in, what year would that be? 2001 or 2001, 2021.
and then you
And
sold it in the fall.
then I sold it in the fall. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
Dream.
is that
Yeah.
is going to be a hard to
It's
beat
not, yeah, I know.
experience.
It's like, and I think I thought, oh, I write a novel in 3 months. That's my time for writing a novel. So
Yeah.
I think this has been a very rude awakening doing the second one. I love what I'm working on. It's just not coming as easily as the
Yeah,
first one.
so tell us, yeah, can you tell us a little bit about
A little bit. It's not, in a huge,
Mhm.
such a good place that I want to like say a ton about it, but it's a similar, like a very location centric place. It's a
Mhm.
locked room with more characters in the room, but it's kind of the same amount of characters as the
Point
very
of view.
Mhm. A couple less. And there's a matchmaker involved.
Oh.
So it's kind of like takes place at this matchmaking weekend.
Ah, I love it.
Yeah.
Well, now, so what do you think feels different? Like, this is interesting too, right?
Yeah.
Because it's, is it a little bit of just like, I did it once and I did it so well and I'll never do it again kind of mentality?
I think just knowing that there are people waiting for it is different, and I think I just feel more pressured in general. I've got like a lot more going on with with the Golden Spoon too. So I'm like, doing more publicity stuff and thinking about that and worried about that.
Mhm.
And so I think some of the anxiety from that like bubbles into my
Yeah,
daily writing. Whereas when I was writing this one, the first one, I just every day that was my job. I gave myself
right.
the summer to do it. I was like, my job is to write 1,000 words a day, and that's all I do no matter what. And now I'm
Yeah,
trying to do that, and I usually get 1,000 words, but then I'm like, are they good words? Am I focused? And I question so much more.
I
Like
know.
I don't know, you have that experience with your
Yes,
second?
I still have it on my 17th. Are you kidding? But
No.
sorry. But I do actually, one of the things I think works really well is, do you ever do sprints?
I haven't really, I mean, I think I kind of work that way anyway,
Yeah.
honestly. Like but I haven't formally done it. What do you do? Do you set your timer
I
for a
said
certain
it
amount?
so this is my new process, and it's kind of new, I
Okay.
think, even in the last, maybe the book that's coming out in May and then the book I'm working on now. Maybe those two books is kind of new.
Mhm.
I light a candle. Like, I have a candle and a
Amazing.
candlestick.
Uh-huh.
I set my timer for 15 minutes, and I light a candle that sort of sits right in my view. And I
Uh-huh.
put the phone down because I don't want to see how the minutes are,
Yeah.
ticking off. And then I I write, and as soon as my brain wants to like squirrel, I see the candle reminds me that this is the time when I'm not allowed to think about
Oh,
anything but the
that's a
book.
good idea.
And then when the timer goes off, if I feel it, I'll just reset it and keep going. But as soon as I stop writing, I blow the candle out. And then I
Hmm.
can take a break. But while that candle's lit, it's my way of saying nothing
Don't
there,
get distracted.
you're not
Hmm.
allowed to think about anything but this book right now. And that
That's
has
really
really
smart.
helped me.
That's really great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
So
it's
something to
honestly,
think
it's
about.
incredible what you can get done in 15 minutes, even. Like if you're focused, like I have no problem getting 1,000 words in a day. It's just like my anxiety about,
Yeah. Yeah.
other things gets in the way. And I think it makes it harder because there's so many decisions you have to make when you're writing something, right? Like, and I get tripped up on those in the way I didn't get tripped up on decisions in the first book for some reason. And now I am. And
Yeah, I mean,
really good.
I think it's probably, a real pressure to success, right? Like,
Mhm.
I did it. And there's also all that nonsense talk about sophomore slumps and the second book, and you have to kind of be like, that does not have to be me. You
Yeah.
just gotta. Now,
Yeah.
are you a plotter? Or are you a pantser?
Kind of both.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I need to know where it's going at least every day. I love like
Mhm.
leaving it where you know what you're going to write the next day. That's
Me
the
too.
best feeling. Oh,
That's a great trick. I don't think
yeah.
everybody knows about that. Explain what you mean.
If I love finding a place in the book to stop if I'm working where I know tomorrow I can get up and write, this scene or this thing. It doesn't even have to be that much. And just that I know it'll be a spark that will keep me writing. Whereas if you finish that and you're done with it, then you have nothing to go to the next day and your brain doesn't want to go to it, first of all. And then once it does, I think it's more likely to be, kind of all over the place and a little
And
bit
it's so
anxious.
anxious. It's that
Mhm.
it's that blank page with the
Mhm.
blinking cursor versus
Mhm.
and that was really good advice. I think actually Lisa Unger said that too, that she felt
Yeah.
like the thing she does is sets up the next, so she gets herself to the top of the next hill, knowing
Mhm.
that the next day is just downhill.
It's so
And then at
great.
the
Yeah.
end of that day, she tries to do the same thing. And
Mhm.
I do think that's,
It's great advice.
she'll
Yeah.
even stop early and be like, I know it's coming, but I'm not going to write
Yeah.
it because I really want that momentum for the morning, which
Mhm.
I think is brilliant. And
It's super smart. Yeah.
mhm,
No, I think I did that like kind of naturally when I was writing the last one. And I think then later read maybe Stephen King said the same thing. There was some
yeah,
really amazing author who
I'm
said
sure.
they did the same thing. And I was like, oh, that's cool. That's like a actual thing that people do.
It's like an actual, if Stephen King does it, it's an
Yeah, it's
actual
fine.
thing,
Yeah.
100%. Well, I do think that's brilliant. I think that is so useful, and I agree with you. And I think, um, so after you've done your, words, is there a part of you that sort of like during the course of the rest of the day while you're doing other things, are you thinking about sort of, you
I
know,
don't think about the book that much when I'm not writing it. I do
okay,
at night when I'm like falling asleep.
mm-hmm,
I'll write little notes in the
mm-hmm.
notes section of my phone. Do you do that too?
I keep
Yeah,
a notepad by the bed because
I have a notepad too. Yeah, the
I
notepad's nicer
just
by the bed too.
Yeah, although sometimes I've woken up and I've written in the dark because my husband's
It's just
asleep,
like,
and the
yeah,
the words are so written all over each other that I'm like, what does it say? But I agree, the note section of
the
your
notes is really helpful.
whatever it takes to just sort of, and sometimes if I'm driving somewhere, I just dictate onto like an
Oh, that's smart.
email and
Yeah,
send that to myself, and then I
that's
can
smart.
grab those words as a way to
Yeah,
start the next day.
yeah.
It's kind of like whatever little level up you can give yourself
Mhm. Yeah,
is
for sure. Oh, anything you can get. That's what I need right now. Anything I can get. But yeah, I definitely don't. I think about this one, maybe the one I'm working on currently, more than I did the last one because I'm so stuck with it different
yeah,
times, I think.
yeah.
But I definitely didn't. I was kind of surprised while I was writing The Golden Spoon. I didn't really think I would do my work and then I wouldn't think about it. And that was like kind of nice, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually, I think there's a when you're not thinking about it, also, I think your brain is working on it. Like there's that subconscious
Yeah.
that's going, all the
Yeah.
time. And I think that is really powerful. So I think we can't underestimate the importance of like doing other things. Like I find folding laundry or, walking the dog or, pulling weeds is
Hmm.
a really good time for my brain to kind of figure out problems, or like you said, right
Hmm.
before you go to sleep. So I
Hmm.
was curious, since we have this incredible cast, coming back to the Golden Spoon, was there a character that started it for you? Was it Betsy? Was it one of the contestants? Do you remember
I
who
think
came
I
sort of
did
first?
write the first section first, like the very first Betsy section was, I wrote that really quickly. And I was like, oh, that's so fun. And then I
Hmm.
had to try to, like, the hardest part about writing this book was trying to figure out the rules of the show because
Yeah,
I wanted it to be, I mean, I obviously couldn't have 20 contestants, 20 points of view. And like, you couldn't have not any of the characters not have a point of view because then you'd know who'd go home
yeah,
first. So it was like
yeah.
very, like,
Interesting.
that was like the logistics of that were very tricky for me for a little bit. Um, but yeah, I think I went Betsy, maybe Hannah then. I remember writing Hannah's part and enjoying
Hmm.
that. Yeah, the characters came to me really fully formed for that book. and I was just really loved them. And I think it is just because it had like a frame of reference already, because I'd watched so many of these shows,
Mm-hmm.
and it just gave it was so easy to picture it.
You kind
Uh,
of knew that the types of personalities that are
yeah.
on
And
these
I loved,
shows,
like,
and
it was so nice because there actually aren't that many places you can have a locked room where people are so different. And that was a really nice thing, because usually people are in a room together because they have something in common, you know?
right,
So it's
right.
kind of amazing to have something like just baking in common, because then you can have, I love having different ages. I think that's like something that's lacking in
Yes,
so many novels. It's just the
right.
same, a group of 20 somethings, and it's just like, how can you
Yes.
keep them apart? They're all the same,
Yes, exactly. Or all women, or all, that's
Yeah.
another ones we see a lot of books that are sort of all
Hmm.
women.
Hmm.
Well, that was super, that was just super fun. And I'm curious, like, so now when you write new characters, like for your new book, do you
Hmm.
write character sketches, or you just sort of dig into the scenes and see how they develop and then kind of go back and flesh them out once that's
I do
happened?
that. I really think about it. When I used to draw for a living, I would draw something that was kind of sloppy. And I think this is just how I work. And then I would go over it and over it and over it. And it feels like writing to feels like sculpting to me, where it's like there's like a piece of it, it's like a mess. And then you kind of like go through it again and
Yeah.
again and again. Like that's definitely how I work.
So you
Um,
write new words, and then do you sort of, or do you go back and read yesterday's words, and then are you sort of that kind of writer, or you write
I
your new?
I skip all over the place. Like if I don't feel
Okay.
like writing a thing, I'll go. If I'm inspired to write like the ending, I'll write the ending, and I'll go back. I'll write the
Interesting.
middle. Are you
Okay.
linear?
Well, for the most part, I always have been. I have tended more recently to sort of be like, something happens here that I'm not sure about, and so I write the next thing,
Hmm.
or this is the scene that happens and I don't feel like writing it, so I write the next thing. But
Hmm.
yeah, writing to be like flipping to the end and writing would mean I know a lot more about
Hmm.
how I got there. I don't necessarily
Yeah,
know
no,
that
and I
much.
mean it does cause problems, but there are things like I know I want to get to a certain point, so it's kind of like I kind of like having that, I think, destination in mind as I'm figuring out the middle. The middles, of the golden spoon to the middle was sloppy for a while, and then I kind of
It
like
ca- it
came
kind of came
together.
to, yeah,
Yeah.
it came
But
together.
I knew the
Well,
ending too, so I was like, "Oh, I can get there." And that was a
right.
kind of a fun challenge. It's like comforting to know the ending, I think. I like
Oh,
knowing
and actually that is the thing for me. Like I'm not saying I could write it, but I always know
know
sort of how
where
I
it's
have to
going.
know, because
Yeah.
I don't really know a lot as I go through, but I have to know sort of the general
Yeah.
direction. It feels like, it sort of feels like navigating cross country, and I don't really know how I need to get from New York to
Mhm.
California, but I know
No,
I have to
totally.
get to
Totally.
California. So
I know, and I have gotten lost on some country roads in this one.
well, right. I think that is exactly,
Yeah.
seems 100% normal to me.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
No, I think it is. And it's like also like it's very easy to put so much pressure on yourself, and be like, "Oh, you have to get it for me like done in 3 months," or it has to be, perfect, and it's not. It really just doesn't. So, I'm
mm-mm.
trying to like let go of some of that stuff too.
Plus now you have an incredible editor you work with. I mean, the thing that's so
Mhm.
different about a first book, right, is that
Yeah.
you're writing it. I mean, you might have critique partners, you might hire an editor, but you don't
Mhm.
have that partnership with
Mm-mm.
an editor who is invested in your book, and
Mhm.
and now you do, right? And I'm sure
Mhm.
your editor, you could send the first 100 pages and be like, am I on? You know
For
what I
sure.
mean?
I have this weird, like, pride about it that I think I need to let go of, because I, like, don't want her to see it, not like, my
Until it's
husband's an
perfect.
editor,
Yeah.
my husband's, like, a very big editor, and I won't show him my books till they're finished. Like, I don't like people reading before I feel confident, and I also don't want people's voices in my head, I think, saying things that are,
Well, that's true. That's why I
like
think a lot of it's tricky, when working with anybody else, a critique partner, an editor,
mhm.
anybody. Yeah, because you just like, they have to be somebody it's almost like a therapist. They
Mhm.
have to
Yes, yes,
listen
it's
more than
tricky.
they suggest, right?
Yeah.
It
Mhm.
sounds like you're saying you want
Yeah.
this thing to happen.
It sounds like you're saying you want her to go down the dark path into the woods.
Exactly. And you're like, yes, that's
Yes,
exactly what I
and
want. That's exactly right. It is. I mean, that is. There's probably an untapped market for therapists to work on books,
Well,
to
on
just
books,
help.
I know. I actually, I had a therapist I went to for many years. And I didn't talk to him about book plots, but he was kind of like open to that. Like he was like he was a writer himself, and we didn't talk about his writing or anything, but like he was just very creative. And I
Yeah.
just kind of, maybe I should like hire him to talk about
I
my
mean,
plots again.
the thing that's fun is in the last, I mean, I published my first book in 2000. So back then I didn't feel like there were sort of these book whisperers, or even not book doctors, because I feel like they're the ones who work after. But now there are some resources, I think, that are quite helpful about with people who are
Interesting.
just like, this is my plot, and and they just
Yeah,
help to make sure there's no holes in it.
that's
So
fun.
it
Yeah.
is, and
Yeah,
and
because you
like,
leave it to the copy edits, and then there's so many, it's just too late to like change things. And yeah, that's
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. So I think there's a woman named Kathy Yardley that's something about. She's got a book called something your plot. I can't remember, but
Mhm.
she was really helpful. She helped me on the book that's coming out in May, just to make sure I had
Yeah,
all the
that's
right,
great. Oh, I would
you
love to do
know.
that.
So yeah, so obviously no two books are written the same way, which is kind of disheartening, right? We think, oh, we know how to do this once, it'll always be the same. So
Yeah, I'm learning very
mm,
quickly. And you've had so many different like
yeah,
experiences. I can't even, I mean, it must be kind of comforting to
it's
like, or is it just
it's
terrifying?
it's just terrifying every time. In fact, um, I got the opportunity to talk to Sandra Brown. She was on the podcast, and she is, I think, one of the most impressive
Hmm.
women I've ever had the chance to speak to. And she was so funny because she said she's got like 90 something books and 88 New York Times bestsellers. And she said something like, every
Wow.
time I start a new book, I'm paralyzed with fear. I'm like, I can't. How can I possibly do this? I can't do this. And she
Yeah.
says she looks at her stack of books, on her shelves, and thinks, okay, well, I mean, I probably can do it. I've done it before. So I guess I just have to. And I'm like, oh my God, if Sandra Brown feels that way, then there's no
That's a
hope for
nice,
me.
yeah, that's
There's
really
no
good to
hope.
know. That's so good to
Yes.
know.
It's just the truth, unfortunately or
It's,
fortunately. So now, do you have a deadline on this next book?
yeah, it's due, in the next couple months.
Yeah.
So
So that's
I need
unnerving too,
to.
right? It
It is
suddenly feels
unnerving. And the book tour stuff is, exciting, but also taking up a lot of like energy. What am I gonna
right.
wear? I gotta
I
like get some
know.
clothes, gotta try my clothes on,
And
gotta
we're kind of, I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like that being gregarious it's, I am, of course, I love people like one on one in small
Mhm.
doses, but I
Yeah,
think it's so overwhelming. It takes so much energy that you then have a recovery period, and
yeah.
it's not the same as it is for people who are just really
Extroverted.
extroverts.
Yeah, no, 100%. And yeah, it'll be interesting because I've never been in a situation where I have to fly every day for something, or, like I have the one at night in New York, and then I have to get up. My flight's at like 8 in the morning to go to Phoenix, and then the next morning there's like a podcast, and I have to get another flight. It's not I have a very, very mellow, quiet life. Like
I
I have to take the
know.
dog to the vet in the afternoon. I'm like, whoa, like all day preparing for it. Like,
That's me too. I'm like, do I
yeah,
have to leave the house today? Do I
yeah,
really have to go? Can I
yeah,
postpone all this? No,
yeah.
that's 100% right. So I mean, I think give yourself some grace, and also know that all of those deadlines are flexible. And it's the
Mhm.
perfectionist in us that wants to be like never late, never, but
Yeah,
everything, there's room for everything. So I think, it just,
yeah,
because otherwise I think we can make ourselves crazy, and that doesn't do it,
for
the
sure.
book or us, any
I
good.
know. I was really freaked out for like a month there for a while, where I was like
Yeah.
feeling very pressured, and things were just not coming out right in the book, or just like also just worried about Golden Spoon going on sale. And at one point I was just kind of like, okay, I'm going to be calm. I need to be calm
Yeah.
about it all.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, you need to be calm, and you just have to also just know that that 1 week will, might be a little crazy, and
Yeah, but
I
it
would
was just
suggest eye
temporary.
drops and the extra caffeine,
Yes.
and then it'll be
Yes.
over, right? I mean,
Yeah.
then you get to go back and
Mhm.
but also enjoy it, because there's
Yeah.
nothing like that first pub day. I
Yeah.
mean, what an incredible accomplishment. So
Yeah.
this, and I cannot remember. I should know this because um I should remember what day. So actually,
March
so
7th.
our podcast, well, yeah, our podcast is what I was looking for. Our podcast actually
Oh.
goes live on March 7th.
Oh,
So
so today.
so as you're listening to this, it is today. The Golden Spoon is available everywhere near you, and it sounds like you can also listen to Jessa talking to Barbara Peters. I'm sure Barbara will record it. She always records those, and they're really fun to listen to too. And go grab your copy. It's so fun, and it will make you crave sweets, which I should
Yes,
warn you in
definitely.
advance.
Mhm.
There are so many yummy sounding things in
Have
here.
some
So,
carbs
so
around.
tell everybody, Jessa, where to find you online, so people can follow you and keep track of your progress on the next book and all that exciting stuff.
I think Instagram, I was going to update my website, but I have not done that. So Instagram is my most, I'm just trying to like make sure I give everyone, it's Jessa Maxwell author is my Instagram handle.
And we
So
will, and are you on Facebook too?
I am, no, I'm not. I mean, I am, but not
But
in a
not
useful
for
way.
books. Okay.
Yeah.
So we will tag you, obviously when we will tag you when we
Great.
post our stuff, and that is all
Yeah.
on Facebook. So I know you have a personal account over there, so you can go check it out too. But everybody, this was so fun, and a really different read, and lots of unexpected twists, and one really gnarly accident. I won't give you too much detail. And then there's this lovely thing that I'm reading from the very final page, which is not giving anything away, but I thought this was so lovely. It says, I think you need others to even be able to see yourself fully. The best way to find the value in yourself is by being good to someone else. There you find your purpose, and that is the sweetest thing I have ever tasted, which I thought was so beautiful. So
thank you.
It's been so fun to talk to you this morning, Jessa, and I'm so looking forward to others reading The Golden Spoon, and looking forward to seeing you at BoucherCon, which is our BoucherCon, for those who don't know, is the annual mystery convention, and it's a readers convention, which means if you are a fan of me or Jessa or any number of 1,000 authors, we will all be in San Diego over Labor Day, and you can come and meet us and buy books and listen to us talk about the crazy life of being a writer.
It'll be very fun.
So thank you for joining us, Jessa. So much fun.
So fun to see you again.
And everybody, this has been Killer Women with our incredible guest, Jessa Maxwell, and her book, The Golden Spoon, which is out today, and you must get your hands on it. And until we will see you next time. Bye.